Good afternoon, everybody. Whoever came on right on time. It's 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 2 p.m. in Edmonton, where our guest today, Joel Hamilton, hails from. I'm Stephanie Brown from Intelligent Construction Opportunities. Intelligent Construction Opportunities hosts these live streams so that we can bridge the information gaps between software vendors and the people that make technology with the construction professionals that want to use these applications. In addition to moderating our live streams, ICO helps the construction industry select their software technologies. So as I said, today our guest is Joel Hamilton. I'm really pleased to have him here. He's a project manager and a rebar and steel specialist with a&hsteel out of Edmonton, Canada. So, we're going to cover just a few things today, but really we want to sort of talk about the path and what brought Joel to his job now, and a little bit about, what kind of skills brought this kind of a character to the land of rebar. So there we go. So welcome, Joel.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you for making the time today. So how's the day going for you in Edmonton? How's that job going that you're working on?
I'm working on a LRT line, or a light rail transit project. So it's about 16 kilometers of rail. We're doing the elevated guideways right now. It's interesting to say the least. It's one of those complex government jobs that has lots of follies and lots of interesting things go on day after day. So
a lot of red tape. You got a lot of. So what sizes are the crews that are working on this particular job?
We have about 20, give or take, dedicated to the project right now. 20 rod busters. So, and they do a fantastic job. I'd give a huge shout out to the superintendent, Frankie. He's driving madly on site and pushing, and his foremen are top notch. Honestly, I just control the chaos from the back end, and they keep making it in the front end, and eventually we'll get this project done.
But that's what a good project manager does. So tell us a little bit. Tell the audience. I mean, I'm intrigued by rebar. I'm always intrigued by the parts of construction where you sort of see them, but you don't really know, and all of that. So tell us a little bit about what rebar is, and then how you got into it yourself.
So rebar is the hidden skeleton underneath the concrete. If you don't see it before the formwork goes up, and you're looking at it after the concrete goes up, there's a problem. Essentially, it's different thicknesses of bars that create this pattern structure just inside the cover of the concrete, or the surface of the concrete, and it gives concrete tensile and shear strength. So concrete's really strong in compression, but once you start shifting it in shear, or you pulling it apart, concrete breaks. And so what rebar does is it counteracts the natural weakness of concrete and gives it strength in different directions. So essentially, it is the modern foundation for modern construction, I guess, is to say, even though it is a couple hundred years old almost.
And what is A&H in terms of what exactly are they doing as a part of, I'll say, the workflow in construction? What is their contribution?
So A&H is one of the very first contractors that gets on site. We often help with the piling contractors, so they're putting the foundations. We then are engaged to draft, supply, and install the rebar on site. That's right from the footings, the foundation, the walls, and as we work up, the floors, depending on your building style. So we hire a plethora of people, including iron workers from the field. We have project managers that run the office. We have detailers. We have an estimating department and a production department, as well as shop vendormen and crane operators.
So let's get into some of those roles then. So, I mean, crane operators, what kind of background do they have to be able to work with a company like A&H?
A lot of our crane operators are overhead crane operators. They're just moving material in and around the shop. It's a 2-day, 3-day course, if I remember correctly, and they just basically bide their time in the shop and get elevated to that type of position.
And what about the guys that actually bend it and work with the rebar? What's their background
So,
like?
so a lot of them are just laborers originally, or guys that have never come from any kind of background specifically. Uh, they come out, they work hard. There's two types of bending. You have a shear which cuts it, so it's a little bit more of um, it's a less automated process than the the coils that we have. So we have a machine that takes the rebar and bends it automatically as well. So it runs a CNC program. And we also have the old-fashioned table benders for those weird shapes that don't want to go through the machine. We actually have guys that will bend it manually.
So I would assume to in order to bend the rebar and know exactly how you're bending it for its the outcome you're using it for, there would have to be some sort of experience. How is A&H dealing with labor shortage and bringing up young guys into these kinds of roles?
So rebar has always been, pardon my political correctness, but a young man's game. There are we
Yeah,
have I think we have 3 female rodbusters, which is the most I've ever seen in my career.
I'm actually
We,
going to show your website because you actually have quite a few women.
we
Because,
do.
well, your company, let's just call it what it is woman led, is it not?
Half of it. So it's a brother, sister. They took it over from their parents.
Nice.
So Glenise is half owner with Craig, or however
Yeah.
principal she calls herself, and she does a fantastic job. She's our HR specialist. Her team really empowers the people in the organization. They really focus on sharpening the axe during the off season, which would be the winter, so that we can produce in the summer. So we have a lot of foremen that are younger. They really invest heavily in the manpower, or the people power, and
Well, so
um,
I just want to, yeah, to your point, exactly. I mean, I think your website, and I don't know, I don't always do this, but I think sometimes people's websites are under showing off, if you know what I mean. So I just want to go through here for a second. So, Sheena, I think it's important when we land on these
there's
things,
Glenise.
you know,
That's one of our fearless leaders.
yeah. And then you've got Rose.
Yep. So we have a lot of office staff that is female. I would say it, the women probably outnumber us in the office, but and we have quite a large portion of female leaders as well. So Fiona, we have Glenise, we have Fiona, who's the project manager, um, head manager of the managers.
But that's fine. I mean, to me, like, here's where I personally feel. I mean, it comes down to the skill, and if you
Yep,
got the skill, to me, it really should not matter
yep,
what sex you carry around with you, if you know what I mean.
I
Uh,
hear you.
but it is. I mean, I guess it's easier said than done. It is not. Your particular field is, you know, pretty amazing to me that there are that many women in it. And so my hat's off to Glenise, and also for your marketing department to actually call that out. Not because to me the men are just as valuable. Like, again, if you do the job, and that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, rebar is one of those odd ones that are left. Like I said, there's not very many women in it. It's not a super attractive to anyone. It's rebar isn't super attractive. I think you have to be a little bit crazy to really enjoy it.
So
And
there's a good segue then. That's a really good segue. We've got Felipe Engineer Mancrease with us today, and I'm really happy to see him here. I want to, sort of get into, well, what brought you to it then? I mean, it on the face of it, it's not sexy, but it sure as hell looks hard.
It is extremely hard. So I was cheap labor when I was 16 for my best friend's dad.
Yeah.
Um, and I kept coming back summer after summer. I graduated high school and then went into university. Um, got bored at university, dropped out, broke my brother's heart, and became a rod buster full time. Uh, by the time I was 20, I had a house and I was married, and 21, 22, 23, started having kids and family, and away we go, right? Like, this trade gave me an opportunity, and I'm more than happy to, you know, praise it. So, um,
Was it the money? Is there particularly good? No, but seriously, is there really good money to start out in
it's
rebar
a
anymore?
2 year trade. It's a
Mm-hmm.
2 year trade in Alberta, so you can get journeyman quickly. It is one of the lower paying journeymen because you don't have the technical side like an electrician, a plumber. But if we screw up, the building falls down. So, um, it's it's not that it's not important. But on it's a it's, it grows on you. It's like when you're in it, the camaraderie of the guys keeps you there.
Well, that's
When
why I called it the ties that bind. It really it does influence. I think whether one sticks with a trade and develops in it.
Yeah, I agree. I One of the leadership books I read talks about the log PT training that the SEALs do, where they pick up the log, they carry the log, they put the log down, they lift it back up, and they do it for 6 weeks. And some of these guys do this trade for 36 years, and they pick up the bar, they carry the bar, they put the bar down, and the Marines say that the log PT training binds the team together because you have to act as one. And if you don't learn how to work in that unit and build that camaraderie, you don't get anywhere in the Marines. And very similar in rebar, like if you don't want to work with the team, you don't want to pack, you just get beat up. When I started, now you just get fired. so 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 and it was like it's a pride thing too, right? It's hard and not many people want to do it, and if you're stubborn and high energy, this is the place for you to be. Like, I was 16 years old, an ADHD kid, and it didn't matter how mad you got at the bars were still there and they still had to be picked up and put away. You could pick them, you could throw them. It just needed to go in the right spot. So
And so from a sort of a beginning stages, I mean, you have to like physical work. I mean, you would just have to.
you do. Like, I have memories of, I grew up in the Okanagan. It was 40 degrees out. I was baking from the slab being oiled. I was baking from the sun down, and I remember distinctly grilling pizza pops on the rebar one day. Like, that's how hot
Wow.
the bars were, and we were still out there packing away, feeling like we were gonna die. And you just get back up and do it again the next day. So
So based on your own experience and if you were mentoring people that, perhaps, were leaving a high school environment similar to you and, really didn't have any sort of sense of what they wanted to do, but they knew that it wasn't more of a university formal education route. What would you suggest if you had to say to them, well, look, there's actually a future here for you? How would you tell them that story, Joel?
oh, I would say if you can't concentrate in school and you don't want to look at books forever, then this is the place to be. Like, you can learn, you can you can make journeyman and be a journeyman for the rest of your life, and you'll make a good wage. You can try, you can float, and then one day you'll wake up and be like, okay, like, I think I got this. I can be a foreman. You put in the effort, and you can progress, or you can make $40 an hour and hang out and, like I said, be a journeyman and not really have to think all that much, right? Especially for people that they're a little bit slower on the uptake and don't like books, and want to find a way to be that doesn't involve going to university or college, but still make it in the world.
So
This
can
is
you
this is
kind
the
of
place
give
for
me
me.
a sense of entry and then the medium and then the high end of it based on experience? I mean, with range, obviously.
So, like in pay, or do you
Yeah,
mean like
in pay.
trying
Yeah.
to break in? Oh, in pay. So I think break-in salary is around $20 an hour, give or take. So A&H is a union company. Most of the rebar, I would say virtually all the rebar placed in Edmonton is union. I'm part of 720. I've been member of 720 for 20 years.
Mhm.
Um, Even though they're union, these boys will outwork anybody else, and they take great pride in their hall, and they take great pride in the work that they do. So, um, a fair day's work, or a fair day's wage for hard day's work is generally the modus operandi for Rodbusters. So that's like full pension, full benefits on top of starting at $20 an hour.
Full pension.
Um,
That's speaking a lot, I think, these days.
that's yeah, it's huge. So you go there once you become foreman, or once you become journeyman. Again, that's 2 years with 6 weeks of school. They or 6 weeks of school in two periods. They can make anywhere from 30, I want to say 35 to 45, depending location and job, right? So I got some guys, they're up north right now. They're doing 14 and 7 and loving life. They go work for 14 days, you know, go live in a plant. They come home, they get 7 days off, and then back up. So I even have one guy who flies to Vegas on his days off. He doesn't even have a house in Edmonton.
Wow. You see, but this is the stuff I want to talk about. Like we need to be able to show people that it's not that, whatever your mythical simplistic ways of seeing a construction guy on the site and go, well, I wouldn't want to be getting up 5 in the morning and then, I hear there's all that overtime or whatever. There is, if you're bringing the skills, I think you can find companies like A&H that understand how to work with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, and skills are made. It's attitude, right? If you're going in, you're going to work hard. You're going to survive. Uh, you all honestly, the hardest thing about rebar is showing up every day and working hard. Like that's it. You don't need a whole lot of gray matter between your ears some days. Like I said, it's a pile of rebar and pick it up, you put it down. Um, as you progress through the levels, there is more and more thinking, and thinking is important, but it's not textbook thinking. It's learning how to build things, and it's more spatially aware thinking would
So
be a
let's
good way of
let's
putting
talk about levels here for a minute, and I love that because I did a live stream not too long ago, kind of around this, which is sort of situational awareness,
it. Yep.
which sort of marries in with what you just said. But I want to kind of talk about from a project manager's perspective. Well, first of all, let's like peel it back a little bit. How did you become a project manager? What was your journey like? And then what is the day in the life like when you are now managing other people that segues with those levels, you know?
So, um, my journey started again, tie and bar. Eventually, the structural side of the trade. So we have broadbusters and we have ironworkers, like structural ironworkers. So the guys that walk the beams. Position opened up. I took that. I got my ticket in structural ironworking. Um, Went and worked for a few years as a journeyman. Then my wife decided she got tired of me working 12 hours a day, driving all over the place for work, and decided I should get an office job. I landed up meeting Randy Perry at Leader Steel 2016. I was an estimator project manager for miscellaneous structural steel. and learned so much there. I'm ever grateful for the guys there.
Hmm.
When so the oil went down and some businesses suffered, Leader closed its doors. I hopped over to Collins as a estimator, project manager. Followed Randy over there, and by 3 months I was project manager. Um, by the time I left Collins, I had run something like 220 projects in 3 years. Um, it was a mad dash of a Herculean effort. It was an amazing experience, and I'm truly thankful for the whole Collins organization for the foundation they gave me. I wouldn't be here without them and Randy and those guys. So just super thankful. I got an offer to go work for a company back east. They had an office in Edmonton. So for 2 years, I did miscellaneous steel. I was senior PM. Um, I flew anywhere and everywhere you could think of. It felt like so. I've been in over the course of the 2 years with Easy. I flew to Boston, Ontario. I was in Long Island, New York, Montreal, Northwest Territories. Had
Wow, that's
yeah,
strange.
it was
Yeah.
a wild ride. Um, and then my wife was kind of like, "Look, you got 4 kids. We're busy. You need to not be on a plane at every beck and whim and call." So um, A&H had called a couple of years before through a recruiter, and I called up the recruiter and I just said I'm looking for a new home, and he was like, give me some time, and later that day he said, well, I got you an interview at A&H. Met with Brad, who's HR under Glenyce. I met with Derek and Chad, and the values of A&H really spoke to me. They've offered me interesting projects, and interesting projects pique my interest. So here I am at the
So,
LRT.
so was that your
I,
definition of an interesting project, starting to work on government infrastructure projects?
no, the definition of an interesting project is not a box. Anything that's not a box, anything that can have problems. So uh,
Wow.
this, this particular this particular project, all the support structures on the elevated segments are Ys. They're typical round columns. They're not a box girder. It literally looks like a Y, and then you have a beam on top. And these Ys are, well, I'm lucky to have all my hair. Let's just say that.
Well, you were telling me a little bit before we came on air that when you're young, little younger years, you were without a couple of teeth.
So yeah, I have not always been the most safety conscious person in my life. I think when you're younger and you're 20, you feel invincible. I didn't motocross. I didn't. I learned not to snowboard, but um, working hard gets the adrenaline up, and sometimes you're not as safety conscious as you should be. I think as you get older, you go back and you views on what you did, and you go, "Wow, yeah, I was really dumb."
So let's put a mark there for a minute. So safety is something that, um, as far as I'm concerned, happens far too often. As you go up the ladder into more of a managerial role, at least project managerial role, but I mean, I think beyond that, based on your experience, how does how do you keep the money boys happy that you report to while maintaining that safety with those crews when it is a hard ass job? Let's call it what it is. I mean, when you're talking about the labor and the heaving around of rebar all day long and so on and so forth, it's so easy in a second to do something incorrectly. How do you manage that as a project manager?
Oh, I think for me, it comes out of knowing what I've done in the past and having that boots on the ground experience. It also gave me a lot of um, I could speak to something and say, hey, I know a guy who lost an arm, or I knew a guy who, lost a thumb, or I don't have teeth because of whatever. And if you can tell a story and engage people at an emotional level instead of just a, hey, my book says you shouldn't build it this way, you can really enact that culture. Leadership that, or safety leadership does come from the top down. Um, and it's important that everybody gathers around it. So um, I'll go back to being at A&H and how blessed we are. Glenise and Craig do an amazing job of always providing what is needed um, for safety, and the guys in the field, to their credit, really don't abuse that privilege. They take care of their stuff. They they know what it costs and how to keep it. Um, so it's a mutual trust thing, I think, as well. And if you break that kind of unwritten agreement between field and office, then it becomes abuse. If the office sends out a guy that doesn't know what he's talking about, the guys are going to laugh at him and not take him serious.
For sure.
So a lot of our safety personnel that we have at A&H, specifically the field side, is old rodmen. We have an old superintendent from a GC. These are guys that have life experience and really can they can dig into the emotional side of telling that story versus just, hey, the rules state and this is why you can't do it.
I like that. I really, really like that. I think that's exactly the place where there is broad brushing application of emotional intelligence, I'll call it, on the job site.
You get a lot more
else
respect.
wouldn't it?
You get a lot more respect when you're formally in the field and then you're now doing safety, I think.
Yeah. So how do you use any kind of I'll say profound technology in as a project manager that you can't really do without now, that you feel makes the experience and the project outcomes better because of it?
My cell phone.
Okay, that's fine. That's
my cell phone and email. If I can't even fathom how this job was done 20 years ago without either one of those. For all the fancy tools and whatever that we have, it all boils down to communication and what is my favorite way to communicate. I have guys that text me, I have guys that email me, I have WhatsApp, I got phone calls, and I figured out a way to put it all in my computer. I can text, I can WhatsApp, I can email, and take a phone call right off the computer. And it's my happy place.
It's your happy place. Yeah, I know
And
we have spoken obviously offline about technology in other ways, and you kind of get close when you see some of the guys that I'm bringing to the fore. But I think you're unusual in the sense that you're very self-motivated to put together your own systems. And I think now that you seem to be,
I'm an old fogey. It's okay.
You're young. Yeah. But like I said to you before, when you told me what your age was, I was like, you sure don't come across that way. You got a very, you're a young man in an old man's body, I think.
Or not in a young man's body.
Well, sorry, yes, I stand corrected. I stand corrected. But yeah, I mean, it's important because I know that you are. I mean, obviously, communication is a strong part of it. Are your crews when they open up their phones, are they pretty much on WhatsApp, which is, one of the most popular ways?
They are on. I will be wherever they need me to be. Um, so my view of being a PM is I really don't make any money as a PM. The guys in the field make all my money. But at the end of the day, I can lose a lot of money really fast. If I hold them up, if I order the wrong product, if I don't complete that communication cycle quickly, um, there can be drastic consequences. But there's no way that me, making another report or whatever is going to actually make any money. So the idea is to make sure that I'm always meeting the guys where they're at versus what I want. If I want everybody to cater to me, I won't be any good at all. So I have one guy, and it's like he's figured out how to use Google Drive. I have another guy who, I'll go down, I'll set up their tablet for them, and he's like calling me saying, "Can you email me it in this format?" And I'm like, "Yeah," I just send him the PDF, knowing that it's going to work. But he thinks I'm doing something magical on my end. I just, I want to help the guys in any way I can to be more efficient. And whether that would be, post-it notes stuck to a pigeon or smoke signals, I would use that too if I had to. Thankfully, I don't.
Yeah.
Even to the point that when I was working in Quebec, I had foremen that didn't speak English, and I'm not a francophone by any means.
Mm-hmm.
And I figured out how to text my foreman through Google Translate just to make sure that we could communicate at some point. It was a lot harder. I will admit it's really nice to be able to pick up a phone and just talk to somebody.
Yes.
But you do learn how to communicate around it, and I don't like having problems stop me. I'll usually figure out a way. But the flip side of technology that makes me probably an old fogey now is I found systems that work really well, and if they work well and they're efficient, you do have to explore new technology, but never sacrifice something that works for something that's new.
Couldn't agree more.
You know, I say my phone and my email, but email is just one kind of aptitude of what I do. Like I have Bluebeam. If you ever listen to the Construction Brothers, they swear by Bluebeam.
That's what I want to get into. I want to understand the ones that, yes, because we can broad brush and yes, communication and absolutely meet your guys on the site where they are. But what are those other kind of pillars?
But I use Bluebeam for everything and anything. Markups, contract review, drawing review. You can overlay in Bluebeam. This might be the best unpaid ad because I swear, like
the check's in the mail, Joel. The check's in the mail.
Yeah, there we go. All 5 cents of it after tax.
Yes.
But with Bluebeam, you can mark up your PDFs. You can unflatten them. You can erase stuff. You can change stuff. I've even used it to draft, like do simple drafting out of instead of having to engage a detailer. Where it might take them 2-3 days to turn it around, takes me 20 minutes, 30 minutes on Bluebeam. So be it. Like it's just as easy, right? Or do call outs, like just to again make that communication clear, right? I think it's something that everybody in this industry tries to work for is super clear communication, and it's always one of those things that can be improved upon.
For sure. So. And we're human at the end of it. I'm working with certain technology vendors now.
Yep.
I had one very recently where, the equivalent of Alexa will be on the job site where you'll be able to ask that, in this case, it's Wendy, but ask that device for the information that is being held by the BIM model.
Oh, wow.
So that's powerful. So yeah. we want to make sure that, that's why I'm saying you need to call out good tech when it's working, and you need to call it out when it's not. So I'm cool with, I mean, your answers are perfectly in line with what I would expect from you. And I think that's a really good segue, actually. The one thing that when I first started talking to you, that was very powerful to me, and that was your passion for purpose. You are purpose driven. There's a pragmatism in you that it just oozes out of you. And so we talked a little bit about the influences in your life, and obviously there's family and there's relationships around you, but you're a big reader, and we've got,
I love my books. I love my books. I love my podcasts.
Tell people how many books you've read so far this year.
This year, I think I hit 63. 63 business books. I don't count my fiction endeavors into that as well. So lots of business, a lot of biographies. Just finished a couple of linguistics books, just because it's a subject that
really
piqued my interest. Yeah. So the history of linguistics and language families across the world. It really opens your eyes to see how just different cultures perceive things, and how small of a bubble we live in North America, in a fairly English-based society. Even though I've dabbled my toes into French, my former operations manager would tell me I still don't speak very good French. I can't write it very well, but I can read it a little bit. But we live in a fairly homogeneous linguistic society, and it was fascinating to understand just the complexities of language across the world. And yeah, there were a couple 12-hour books, and smashed them off in a week or so. So
wow. And to think that you've got 4 fairly young kids on top of it.
4 kids. It's a busy house, but when you've got basically a farm to maintain, you just pop in the headphones and away you go. So I don't actually read the words on the paper. I'm much too dyslexic and ADHD to do that, but I listen to most of my books at about 1.5 speed.
That's excellent. So there's a good segue. And, so what Joel and I talked about, just to sort of prep whoever's watching, I want to really kind of know his influences. If you're reading 63 books in a year, there is a certain repetition dependent upon the themes that you're reading, and the ideas that are created. But I really kind of want to get a scope from Joel. So here goes. I'm going to just put up really quickly. This one, I loved it. When Joel said this was one of the foundational influences for him, I mean, who better than Henry Ford?
The original lean thinker. So I remember reading like The Toyota Way, 2 Second Lean, and then I just happened to come across this book and listen to it, and it was fascinating that Henry Ford, 100 and whatever years ago, is basically speaking the lean message without having the vernacular to really talk about being lean. He called it.
Can you tell the audience from your perspective your definition of lean? Because sometimes people know and sometimes they don't.
Lean is just the reduction of waste while maintaining, respect for people. Like a great metric is non-personnel cost reduction. In a more metric style way of saying that is, how do you eliminate all the extra costs so that you can bolster up your people and make them great?
Good. I mean, you've basically taken sort of 5 basic principles, at least according to the school of LCI. And, I mean, it really comes down to people, and I'll say, yes, waste, and yes, continuous improvement, but it's really about how people kind of efficiently approach their work.
Right. And I don't agree with everything that Henry Ford said. I don't think you can ever agree with everything,
No,
but
no.
he he had some amazing ideas where he just talked. One little passage that comes to mind is like he was talking about the railways being so inefficient in the early 1900s, and he bought a railway and made it profitable. And he was like, all I have to do is use common sense and good people, and it'll work. Um, you know, he was years and years ahead of his time, and had to be had a strong, you know, person to counter the um, his stubbornness. He probably would have been so much more at the end of his life than where he got to. And he still is a foundational person. It's just he he got stuck on the color black, and he got stuck on the Model T, and thought he couldn't ever achieve more than that. And he really needed to push beyond that, I think. So
Yeah, but think about it. I mean, I'm a big fan of the History Channel, so what little I know specifically about him has been um, sort of advised from my watching his biography on the History Channel, and it really struck me that it took, he started out with the Model A, and he almost went through the entire alphabet.
yeah.
So that speaks to tenacity. And then also
Oh
when he recognized the fact that he was trying to make the car for the common man. I mean,
yeah.
started out being, a luxury item, but until he made it for the common, man, family, whatever you want to talk about. I mean, and to think that stoplights had not been created and that people used to run ahead of these cars with flags to
Yeah. It,
conduct traffic. I mean,
it's
talk
crazy.
about an innovator.
Yeah, it's crazy. And like to see the future so clearly and so well defined. He There's a quote from How Google Works, and he said maybe Ford wasn't just trying to build a better horseless carriage because there was lots of cars out. He probably was just trying to build a better Benz, like a Mercedes Benz.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's a chapter in his book where he talks about seeing one of the first Model Ts, or not Model Ts, Mercedes Benz cars, and just being absolutely dumbfounded that they would even consider it a car, because he thought his was so much more superior. So,
How interesting. All right, so let's move on to the next book then. This is a
oh,
really cool one.
this is one of my favorites. It's a foundational book on management, like I would call it like a blue collar management guide. So Nucor is the largest North American steel provider. I did my college, one of the papers in college on the company, really delved into the culture of Nucor, how their continuous improvement. One quote would be Ken Iverson says management is really simple. All you have to do is align the workers' goals with the management's goals. Um, and that was his whole foundation to running Nucor, taking it from basically a bankrupt nuclear component fabric or manufacturer, with a slightly profitable joist division, to what Nucor is today, which spans North America from Haiti all the way to here. I think, whether it be their joist division, their mill division, their raw materials division, their scrap division, even Harris Rebar, which is one of our major competitors, is a division of Nucor. You just can't get away from Nucor if you're in the steel business. So um, he he developed a way to reward employees based on clean tonnage. He, there's a story in the book that says he or Nucor brought in a new machine. They gave the metric that said, um, if your bonus starts at 10 man hours, or 10 tons per hour. If you get more than that, you can earn up to 200% of your wage. So when they brought the machine in, they were working at about 8 tons per hour. Slowly they started getting it up to 10. He kind of forgot about the machine, came back the next year, and the guys are producing 20 tons per hour, making 200 times their wage, or sorry, 2 times their wage in bonus money. And the machine was only supposed to be rated for 16 tons per hour, and they figured out how to engineer it to go faster and better. So,
But that's good management. So it reminds me of a book that I've read called Maverick. It's about a Brazilian company that basically handed over all the management decisions to the employees.
yeah,
And I think the underlying message in what he's talking about is empowering people to do their damn job. It just
right. And he also used social pressure because everybody was rewarded as a team. Like, so you were individual units, and if you were slacking, but there was 4 other guys that depended on those bonuses or they wanted their bonuses and they knew how it worked, you weren't going to last very long. So, as Jim Collins puts it, it became a cult-like culture, right? You feed the machine, and the machine feeds the culture, and it just sharpens and sharpens and sharpens until um, you have these guys that have worked there 26 years, and you just watch them work, and it's fascinating. They're so fast.
It's really cool how you're calling out other books that are on the list. So we'll move to the third one. So you just talked about Jim Collins. That they themselves, in order to write a book, I mean, listen, let's be honest. People that write books have learned from other books before them.
Right.
And that's what makes them capable of their own ideas. And as you said, you don't agree with everything Henry Ford is or wrote or whatever, but the whole idea is to ingest and then, leave behind and take away what you want.
Yeah. So Jim Collins offers just some amazing management. Good to Great has the new core story in it. My favorite book on that is the blue one. Um, it it really shows you how to survive in a volatile industry. And construction, especially in Alberta, especially in Edmonton, has been highly volatile for the last 5 years. We do really well when the oil is up, and we don't do very good when the oil is down. And learning the principles from that Jim Collins talks about, whether it be getting the right people in the right seats, learning what you're really good at and sticking to it, um, to more abstract points uh, offers great learning. So to go back to A&H, every time I meet with Glenise, we do a one-to-one. She does a one-to-one with everybody in the company at least once every couple months.
You go, Glenise.
Her and I pull out our book lists and we compare, and we kind of have a running joke about who's reading what and how. And so Jim Collins is an author we both enjoy reading.
So if somebody was watching this and said, okay, you said your favorite is Great by Choice. I know Good to Great to have been. You told me that Good to Great was not the first one in his series. Can you sort of point that out for people?
So Good to Great is his second book. Built to Last came before Good to Great, and before that was Entrepreneurship. So it's the yellow book, but Jim Collins revised it almost 2 decades later, kind of summarizing, starting with Entrepreneurship, the book, and then adding all the material that he's learned along the way. So How the Mighty Fall, Good to Great, Great by Choice, and Built to Last. Plus, you missed the pamphlet he has about the flywheel. So that's all kind of summarized in Entrepreneurship or Beyond Entrepreneurship 2.0. So if you want to get like a really a good understanding of Jim Collins, read Beyond Entrepreneurship 2.0, or just go to his website. He has a kind of a timeline of company and um, growth or management principles on his website. There's another great website to go have a look at.
All right, good recommendation. Let's move on. So
Oh,
you called out how Google works earlier.
how Google works is probably one of my favorites. It's become, I read it so often, it's become part of my lexicon.
Wow. There's a recommendation.
I still talk about primordial ooze and sticking stuff on walls, and a lot of how I think, a lot of how I manage, a lot of how I communicate really came out of this book. So I started reading it every year back when it first came out, and I have copies. I've given copies away. Um, I read it at least once, probably several times a year. To the point that um, when I was contributing to the field leader or crew leader book with Jason Schroeder, I'm sure a lot of the words that I put in that book came directly from this book. To
Like
the
I
point
said,
that
they build on one another.
the words just come out, and the way Eric Schmidt and Jonathan Rosenberg write, like I just wish I could write half as well, and even a tenth as well as those two guys did. I'd be amazed. But it just has the best way to say it is it takes how Jim Collins's work, sticks it all in a book from a real life example, and says this is how to run a modern company, right? And they talk about culture, about how their leaders stood up at the IPO and said, this is how we're going to run this company. You can either get on board or you can forget us and go invest your money elsewhere, but we're here for the long term. And they've probably been pretty successful at that.
They are. They're fighting it out right now with this AI and Microsoft and ChatGPT. They remind me a little bit in the laggard position, if you will, that Microsoft found themselves when Apple took off with the iPhone.
Remember though that this is the position that Google actually favors. When Google was invented, they tried to sell themselves to was it Yahoo or Ask Jeeves? They were one of the later people to come to market in search, and then they just kept offering. One of their mantras was focus on the customer experience and focus on the product, and everything else will sort itself out.
They always credit Jeff Bezos with, customer first. Anyway,
Yeah.
the bottom line is, as far as I'm concerned, these principles are dead systemic to running a successful company, no matter what you're going to run.
And kind of the amazing part is that they move so much faster than we do in the construction industry. That they can take the principles, and we should be able to take the principles and apply it to us. And it's just a great example of kind of an incubator of culture, let's say.
Great recommendation. All right, let's move on.
Oh, there's
the
Jason.
Great Jason Schroeder.
So, yeah, Jason, I've been drinking Elevate Construction Kool-Aid since episode 20, and I think he's well past 1,000 now. So, Jason and I go way back, and you know, I've had the pleasure of helping him with some of those books, and
I will call out your contribution.
Oh no,
Yes, sir. Yes. Listen, we all build on one another. I mean, think of how you start. You started by talking about Henry Ford, right? I mean, you will be somebody along the book line when people are talking about these books 10 and 20 years from now, where people learned from you guys. So
Jason just gives me he gave me the freedom to write, and one of my goals was to write a book. So, I credit him. He got to clean up all my bad writing, and what came out was a pretty good. It was a pretty amazing book. So that would be the crew leadership. I've helped with the senior superintendent. I've helped with the superintendent book. Um, and but I consider it just a huge thank you for, like, he pours so much into the industry. He makes a podcast almost every day, and that's the least I could do for the amount that I've gleaned from him. If I was to actually pay tuition to a university course for everything that I've learned from Jason, I could, I'd be having student loans and up to my ears in student loan debt. So, um, it's just we help each other go forward.
You help each other go forward, but he needs people like you. He needs people that believe in his secret sauce, I'll call it. It is because he is at the forefront, and he is a guy, another one just like you, that's been there, done that.
Yeah.
Felipe, if he's still with us, same thing. Been there, done that. Adam Hoots, been there, done that. Jesse Hernandez, been there, done that. Jen from Robbins and Morton. I mean, at the end of the day, we all sort of pick up your piece of the mantle, and you have to know what you know, but you also have to know what you don't know, so you can know better. And this is where this is why this segment of our live stream today to me is important, because I really think it's informed who you are and how you show up today.
I would say that out of all those books, if I could get one book read in the industry, it'd be the White Book. If everybody could learn how to schedule and plan and prepare some better, and just raise the whole collective industry, in it would do us so much good. One book you didn't mention that now we're talking about it comes to mind is How Big Things Get Made, and it talks about the scheduling fallacies that we suffer in the construction industry, and how we walk in like totally blind, thinking everything's going to go great, just to have everything fall apart and crash land the project again and again and again. And if we could get away from the Microsoft project and the P3s, and it takes me back. I was sitting in a trailer once, and the superintendent handed me like a fat schedule. Like, he's like, "Look what I just finished," and I was like, threw it out. I was like, "It's not worth the paper it's printed on, because it's already wrong." And he's like, "But I just worked like a week on it." It's like, well, just let me know when my stuff's going to be ready, because I don't even want to waste my time looking at it. Jason and the whole kind of lean industry is really pushing tack planning, and Felipe Engineer, he's doing the Scrum that really builds upon the foundational aspect of tack. And we could really start seeing where we have problems with physical location and trade stacking and movement, and how that project is going to get built in a rhythm. We would do so much for the industry beyond recruiting, beyond technology. And honestly, like, another tool that I use every day is Excel. And I see on LinkedIn all the time, like, oh, Excel is a dinosaur. Well, guess what? That dinosaur runs, it swims, it flies, it does everything I possibly could need it for. So if you're going to build a schedule and you're going to visually show what's going on in that schedule, then great. And I remember early when Jason was talking about tack planning, as a structural project manager, we would location base all our work regardless of what the GC said. And it was like, I just kept shaking my head like, why does this guy think this is so like profound? Like, it's not a big deal. I just draw on a drawing, I show where I'm going to be, and away I go. So,
Well,
but
I can tell you that I'm working on something with somebody, and so there'll be a little bit of interesting and fun show and tell coming down the pike
oh,
uh,
good. You'll have
for
to send
you
me a
guys
demo, and we
soon.
could go over it. We'll have a panel of
Yes,
all. There we
seriously,
go. That would
seriously.
be fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, I think this has been very informative. I think you tell your story very naturally, and you share all this information so willingly. I can't thank you enough, Joel. I really,
Oh,
really appreciated the outing today. Um,
thanks for just listening to me babble.
no, not babble, not at all, not at all. You've
Look, the size of my mouth, I love talking.
You've earned every stripe you've got. That's all I can say. And I look forward to seeing where your career goes, and what you do, because there was a lot of, to me, very strong points. Whether we talked about the safety or the influence of the books, that really come back down to it's one thing to talk about the lean principles. It's another thing just to do them, just do and be them.
Yeah.
And those are where the changes in our industry are going to really happen. So on that, again, I thank you very much. I'm going to end the live stream now. Stick around a little bit after I do, and I will say thank you to everybody that tuned in. There will be certain collateral that'll be coming your way for those of you that registered or those of you that are interested. And we'll see you soon. Bye for now.
Thank you.